Read people instantly. 1. Watch their eyes. There's a reason people call the eyes the window to the soul. You can rehearse your words, you can practice your smile, you can straighten your back and choose the right clothes. But your eyes will always betray what's happening inside. If you want to read people instantly, start here. Pay attention to the eyes. Think about it. When someone's genuinely excited, their eyes light up. The pupils dilate. There's this spark you can't fake. On the flip side, when someone's uninterested, tired, or just going through the motions, their eyes dim. They might still nod, they might still give polite responses, but you'll see the absence of energy right there in their gaze. Eye contact is the first clue. Some people avoid it entirely, and that usually means one of two things. They're either insecure or they're hiding something. Neither of those is necessarily bad. An insecure person isn't dangerous, they might just need reassurance, but someone avoiding eye contact to hide the truth is a whole different story. Learning to tell the difference takes practice, but the clue begins in whether or not their eyes can hold yours. Then there's the opposite, the person who stares too much, the kind of eye contact that doesn't feel natural. That isn't confidence, that's control. A person trying to dominate the conversation will lock eyes with you like they're pinning you down. And here's the key, you don't have to accept it. Recognize it for what it is. You're not reading weakness in yourself. You're reading power play in them. Another layer of reading eyes is in where they look when they think. Research and psychology point out something interesting. When a person glances up and to the left, they're often recalling memory. Up and to the right, they're often constructing or imagining something new. Now, don't get carried away with this. It's not a foolproof trick to spot lies, but it is another clue in the toolbox. If someone keeps looking away every time they answer a direct question, they may be searching for something other than the truth. You'll also notice eyes when emotions shift. Tears welling, even if they never fall, tell you that words hit a tender spot. Rapid blinking signals stress. Squinting might mean suspicion. Rolling eyes. Disrespect, plain and simple, and here's the beauty of reading eyes. People can't always control these reactions. They might try, but the eyes speak before the brain decides how to cover it. If you want to test this in real life, try paying attention to someone's eyes the next time you tell a story. If they're engaged, their eyes will track you, widening at key moments, narrowing when they're thinking. If they're disengaged, they'll glance at their phone, the door, the clock. That tells you instantly how much weight your words carry in that moment. The most important part of reading eyes isn't about calling people out. It's about connecting better. When you see the person in front of you looks away in discomfort, maybe it's your cue to back off and give them space. When you notice their eyes light up when they talk about something, maybe that's your chance to lean in and encourage them. Reading eyes isn't about manipulation. It's about awareness. Now here's where it gets powerful. Once you start practicing this skill, you'll find yourself calmer in situations where you used to feel uncertain. A business negotiation, you'll see who's bluffing and who's genuinely confident. A first date, you'll know whether they're truly interested or just being polite. Even in your own home with your family, you'll catch those moments where someone says, "I'm fine," but their eyes tell you they're not. And let's be clear, you won't always be right. Reading eyes is a guide, not a guarantee. People are complex and you don't want to rush into judgment, but even when you're wrong, you'll be more present, more engaged, more tuned in. And that's the real point. Reading eyes forces you to actually see people, not just hear them. So here's the takeaway. Start training your focus. When you're in a conversation, don't just listen to the words. Watch the eyes. Are they holding steady or shifting away? Bright with interest or dull with fatigue? Are they showing openness, hiding pain, or trying to control the room? Learn that, and you'll walk through life with an advantage most people never even think to practice. Eyes don't just tell you who a person is in the moment. They tell you where their heart and attention really live. And once you learn to read that, you can respond with wisdom, not guesswork. 2. Listen to their voice. Words are only half the story. The voice behind them, the tone, the pace, the rhythm, the volume, tells you everything the words are trying to hide. If you want to read people instantly, you can't just listen to what they are saying. You have to listen to how they're saying it. Think about the last time someone told you, "I'm fine." The words said one thing, but the voice probably told you another. Maybe it was sharp and cold, dripping with irritation. Maybe it was flat and lifeless, signaling defeat. Or maybe it was shaky, covering pain. The same two words, "I'm fine," can mean peace, anger, exhaustion, or heartbreak. The words don't give it away, but the voice always does. That's why paying attention to tone is a game changer. Tone is like a fingerprint of emotion. A raised pitch often signals anxiety or fear. A sudden drop in tone might show sadness or resignation. A steady, calm voice usually signals confidence. The trick is, most people don't even notice because they're too focused on their own next response instead of listening deeply. And it's not just tone, it's pace. Someone talking too fast may be nervous, hiding something, or desperate to convince you. Someone dragging their words slowly could be tired, bored, or deliberately holding back. Either way, pace tells you what state their heart and mind are in. Volume is another clue. A voice that suddenly rises in volume usually means the person is either defensive or trying to gain control. A voice that drops too low could signal vulnerability or even shame. And here's the truth. Most people don't choose these shifts consciously. They leak out of us when our emotions outrun our words. One of the most powerful ways to read people instantly is to pay attention to mismatches between voice and words. If someone says, "I love working here," but their voice is flat and monotone, they don't mean it. If they say, "I don't care," but their voice is sharp and biting, they do care. Whenever voice and words disagree, the voice is telling the truth. You'll see this in everyday life if you pay attention. A teenager who says, "Nothing's wrong," in a trembling voice. A co-worker who says, "Of course, I'll help," in a clipped, impatient tone. A friend who says, "I'm excited," but speaks without energy. The voice never lies, it's always exposing what the heart is feeling. Here's the part that matters. Listening to voices isn't about catching people in dishonesty. It's about connection. When you listen beyond words, you learn how to respond in a way that meets people where they truly are. If someone says they're okay but their voice cracks, that's your chance to lean in with compassion. If someone says they're happy for you, but their tone is bitter, that's your clue to tread gently because jealousy may be in the room. It also helps protect you. When you hear aggression in someone's tone, you know not to mistake it for passion. When you hear insincerity, you know not to mistake it for truth. The voice gives you the radar to know when to open up and when to hold back. Now here's a practical way to sharpen this skill. Practice active listening. Don't just hear words. Repeat them in your head while studying the delivery. Ask yourself, does their voice match their message? Then watch how often you spot the gap. The more you do it, the faster and clearer it becomes. And don't underestimate silence in the voice. Sometimes what someone doesn't say speaks louder than what they do. If their voice trails off mid-sentence, it could mean hesitation, fear, or the weight of something unsaid. Those quiet cracks in the voice are the loudest signals of all. The more you practice, the more you'll see the truth. The voice is a mirror of the soul. It carries every fear, every hope, every frustration, and every joy. And while people can polish their words, they can't polish the tremble in their throat or the quiver in their breath. That's where the truth lies. So the next time you want to read someone instantly, don't just listen to their words, listen to their voice. Listen to the cracks, the pauses, the pitch, the pace. That's where their real story is. Because when you master the art of hearing the voice behind the words, you'll never be fooled by surface appearances. You'll hear the unspoken truth, and that's the kind of skill that will protect you, connect you, and guide you in every conversation you'll ever have. 3. Notice their hands if you want to know what someone is really feeling. Don't just listen to their words or even their tone. Watch their hands. Because here's the truth, Hands are the hardest part of the body to control. People rehearse their words, they practice their smiles, they can fake confidence in their posture, but their hands will tell you what's happening inside when everything else looks calm. Think about the last time you were nervous. Maybe it was a job interview, a first date, or standing up to speak in front of people. Even if you smiled and spoke clearly, your hands probably betrayed you. They fidgeted, tapped, picked at something, or twisted together. That's because your hands are directly connected to your nerves. They react before your brain has a chance to hide what you're feeling. That's why watching hands is one of the fastest ways to read someone instantly. Here's what to look for: fidgeting fingers tapping on the table, playing with jewelry, picking at nails. This usually signals nervousness, stress, or impatience. Crossed arms with hands tucked. This is a double layer of protection. It's a defensive move, usually signaling someone is closed off or not ready to trust. Pointing fingers. Pointing isn't just emphasis. It's often a sign of aggression or dominance. When someone points a lot during conversation, they're trying to control. Open palms, an open-handed gesture, usually signals honesty and openness. People exposing their palms are subconsciously showing they have nothing to hide. Clenched fists. Even if they're smiling, if their fists are tight, there's anger or tension simmering underneath. The power of noticing hands is that it gives you a second language to read. People may say one thing, but their hands often say another. A co-worker might tell you, "I'm totally comfortable with this project," while rubbing their hands together nervously. A friend might say, "I'm not upset," while their fists ball up on their lap. Who do you believe, the words or the hands? Always the hands. Now, not every hand movement means something dramatic. Sometimes people fidget simply because they're bored. Sometimes folded arms just mean they're cold. But the key is to match the hands with the moment. If the hands don't fit the story being told, pay attention. That's where truth leaks out. There's another layer here too: mirroring. When people feel safe and connected, their hands often mirror yours. If you lean in with your hands open on the table, they may unconsciously do the same. This is an instant signal of trust and rapport. On the flip side, if their hands stay locked, hidden, or restless, it often means they're guarding themselves. Watching hands also helps in conflict. Imagine someone is angry but saying, "I'm calm." Their voice might even sound steady, but if their hands are clenched tight, you know there's a storm underneath. That tells you not to take their words at face value. Instead, you prepare yourself for the real emotion hiding beneath. And here's something most people miss: the absence of hand movement. If someone usually talks with their hands but suddenly locks them still, it often means they're holding back, hiding, or feeling judged. Silence in the hands can be just as loud as movement. The beauty of this skill is how practical it is. Next time you're in a meeting, shift your focus from faces to hands. Watch how the quietest person may reveal more with their hands than the loudest person does with their words. Watch how tension shows up in ringing fingers. Watch how sincerity shows up in open palms. The goal isn't to judge people. It's not about calling them out or assuming the worst. The goal is awareness. When you see nervous hands, maybe it's your chance to reassure. When you see open palms, maybe it's your chance to lean in and trust. When you see fists clench, maybe it's your cue to slow down before the conversation explodes. Hands are the body's truth tellers. They don't know how to lie, and the more you practice noticing them, the faster you'll read people for who they really are. So remember this: hands speak before the mouth does. They reveal stress, honesty, anger, openness, and everything in between. And if you can learn to watch hands while everyone else is distracted by words, you'll always see what others miss. Because words are rehearsed, but hands are raw. And when you notice them, you're not just reading people, you're reading truth. 4. Study their posture if you want to know how someone really feels. Don't just listen to their voice or watch their hands. Step back and study their posture. Because posture is the body's billboard. It announces confidence, insecurity, interest, or avoidance long before a single word comes out of someone's mouth. Think about it. Posture is the first thing you notice about someone when they walk into a room. You might not even realize you're noticing it, but you are. Shoulders pulled back, head lifted high. That tells you they're feeling sure of themselves. Shoulders slouched, chin tucked down. That tells you they're carrying something heavy, maybe insecurity, maybe fatigue. The posture of a person is like a silent message they broadcast whether they want to or not. Let's break it down. When someone stands tall, chest open, arms relaxed at their side, they're signaling openness. They're comfortable being seen. That's the kind of body language that makes people feel at ease around them. On the other hand, when someone is hunched over, with their arms folded across their chest, it signals defensiveness. They're protecting themselves, whether from judgment, criticism, or even the conversation happening in the moment. Posture also shows interest. Picture a conversation where one person is leaning forward, body angled toward you. That posture screams engagement. They're present, they're listening, they're invested. But if they're leaning back, arms crossed, body turned slightly away, they might still be hearing you, but they're not with you. They've already started to check out. One of the most powerful ways to read posture is during conflict. A person might say, "I'm not mad," but if their arms are crossed tight, their body stiff, and their jaw locked, you can trust the body over the words. Tension lives in posture. You can see anger in a squared stance. You can see defensiveness in a turned shoulder. You can see submission in slouched shoulders. Once you learn to see it, it's impossible to miss. And posture doesn't just reveal, it also affects. A person standing tall often feels stronger simply because their body is signaling strength. That's why athletes stand tall before competition, why leaders straighten their backs before giving speeches, and why slumping makes you feel smaller than you are. The body isn't just a reflection of the mind, it can influence it. Now, here's the deeper part. Posture can reveal what words are hiding in everyday moments. A child sitting at the dinner table with shoulders hunched low might not say, "I had a hard day at school," but their body already told you. A spouse leaning away during a conversation might not admit, "I'm feeling disconnected," but their posture is shouting it. A co-worker shrinking in their chair during a meeting might not say, "I'm overwhelmed," but their posture betrayed them. And just like hands, posture reveals comfort through mirroring. When people are connected, they often mirror each other's posture without realizing it. If you lean forward with relaxed shoulders, they might do the same. If you cross your legs, they may match you. That's the body's way of saying, "I feel safe with you." On the other hand, when postures clash, one person open and relaxed, the other closed off and turned away, it shows distance, even if the words sound friendly. Learning to read posture also protects you. When you notice someone standing rigid and leaning in too close, you know they're not just engaged. They might be trying to dominate. When you see someone slouching low in a chair, you know not to mistake their silence for agreement. They may be shrinking from the discussion entirely. Posture gives you context words will never provide. The best way to practice this is simple. Observe from a distance. The next time you're in a public place, a cafe, an airport, a waiting room, watch people's posture before you hear their words. See the parents leaning in toward their children, the friends huddled together in laughter, the businessperson pacing tall with confidence. Then, when you finally hear their words, match them against what you already saw in their posture. You'll be shocked at how often you were right before they even spoke. At its core, posture is honesty. It doesn't always scream, sometimes it whispers, but whether loud or subtle, it always reveals. You don't have to be a body language expert to read it. You just have to slow down and notice. So remember this, posture is presence. It's a reflection of how someone sees themselves in the moment, how they feel about the conversation, and what they're trying to protect or project. If you can learn to read it, you'll never walk into a room blind again. Because words can mislead, but posture always tells the truth. And when you study it, you're not just reading people, you're understanding them in a way most people never even think to look for. 5. Pay attention to pauses. Most people think communication is about what's being said. But the truth is, some of the loudest messages are carried in the spaces between words, the pauses. If you want to read people instantly, don't just listen to their sentences. Pay attention to the silence wrapped around them. Here's why. Silence is never empty. It's full of meaning. A pause before a response might signal hesitation, fear, or calculation. A pause after a statement might signal doubt, regret, or the weight of something unsaid. And sometimes the pauses are more powerful than the words themselves. Think about the last time someone asked you a difficult question. You probably didn't answer right away. You paused. That pause told the other person that you were thinking carefully, or maybe scrambling to protect yourself. Either way, your silence spoke before your mouth did. When people pause too long before answering, it can signal they're constructing a response. That doesn't always mean they're lying. It might mean they're carefully choosing words. But it does tell you this. What they're saying isn't the first truth that came to mind. They had to filter it. That pause is the doorway between their real thought and their chosen words. On the other hand, when someone answers too quickly, snapping back before you've even finished asking, it often signals defensiveness. They weren't listening, they were preparing a shield. Their speed reveals anxiety and sometimes guilt. If you're paying attention, you'll see it immediately. Pauses also show up in storytelling. A person reliving something painful may pause mid-sentence, not because they forgot the words, but because the memory stopped them. That silence carries more emotion than a flood of words ever could. When you notice those pauses, you don't rush to fill them, you honor them, because that's where truth lives. Here's another layer. The pause isn't just about length, it's about timing. Someone might pause in the middle of a word, stumbling awkwardly. That signals nervousness or uncertainty. Someone might pause right before a key phrase, almost like they're testing the waters. That shows they're weighing the risk of saying it out loud. These small hesitations are the cracks where their inner world slips through. And don't overlook intentional pauses. Some people use silence as a tool. Leaders and negotiators pause to create weight, to make others lean in, to control the pace of a conversation. In those cases, the silence isn't nervousness, it's power. Knowing the difference is what makes you a sharp reader of people. Now, here's where this becomes practical. Stop fearing silence yourself. Most people are so uncomfortable with pauses that they rush to fill them with chatter. That's why they miss what the pause is saying. If you can train yourself to sit still in the silence, watching, waiting, and listening, you'll hear things most people never do. Imagine a friend saying, "Yeah, I'm okay," and then pausing. That pause is your clue. They aren't okay. The words lied, but the silence told the truth. Or imagine a coworker answering a direct question about a mistake. If they pause, look down, and then finally speak, that pause revealed guilt before the words ever came. The pause can even be an invitation. When someone trails off and doesn't finish their thought, they're often waiting to see if you care enough to ask. If you lean in and gently say, "Go on," you open the door for honesty they might not have shared otherwise. And here's the beauty of paying attention to pauses. It makes you more patient, more discerning, and more empathetic. You stop reacting only to what people say, and you start responding to what they mean. That's how you connect deeper. That's how you protect yourself from being misled. That's how you build trust. So what do pauses really mean? They mean emotion. They mean calculation. They mean hesitation. They mean strategy. But above all, they mean there's more happening beneath the surface than the words are letting on. And if you can learn to notice that, you'll see the truth in conversations everyone else misses. Because the silence isn't empty, it's full of signals. And if you learn to listen to pauses as carefully as you listen to words, you'll never just hear people, you'll understand them. 6. Trust your gut. You can learn to watch people's eyes, study their hands, listen to their voice, notice their posture, even read their pauses. But at the end of the day, the most powerful tool you'll ever have in reading people instantly is already inside you, your gut. Your instincts are not random. They're the result of thousands of moments you've lived, conversations you've had, and patterns you've picked up without even realizing it. Every time you walked into a room and sensed tension, every time you talked to someone and just knew they weren't being real, you were storing data. Your gut is your brain's way of pulling all that silent data together and flashing a warning light or giving a green light. The problem is, most of us ignore it. We tell ourselves, "I'm overthinking." We give people the benefit of the doubt when our gut is screaming at us. We let politeness override intuition. And later, when things go wrong, we say the same phrase, "I knew it." That right there is your gut. It told you before your mind caught up. Trusting your gut doesn't mean jumping to conclusions. It doesn't mean judging people unfairly or assuming the worst. What it means is respecting your intuition enough to pause, to consider, to lean in and ask, "Why does this feel off?" Or "Why does this feel right?" Here's how it works in real life. You meet someone new, and something about them doesn't sit right. They're smiling, saying all the right words, maybe even charming, but deep inside, something feels forced. That's not paranoia. That's your intuition picking up on micro signals you don't consciously see. Maybe their smile didn't reach their eyes. Maybe their tone didn't match their words. Maybe their body language leaked a flicker of dishonesty. You don't have to know exactly why. You just need to respect the signal. On the other side, sometimes your gut tells you to trust someone. You've known them for 5 minutes and already you feel safe, open, like you can breathe around them. Again, that's not an accident. Your instincts picked up on something real, consistency between their words and body language, a calmness in their tone, a sincerity in their presence. That green light matters just as much as the red one. The best way to sharpen this skill is to look back at your own history. Think of the times you ignored your gut and paid the price. Think of the times you listened and it protected you. That reflection trains you to value your instincts instead of brushing them aside. Now, does your gut ever get it wrong? Of course. Sometimes it's shaped by fear, past trauma, or bias. That's why you balance it. When your gut speaks, you don't have to act instantly, but you do have to listen. You weigh it against the facts, the evidence, and the moment. But here's the truth. More often than not, your gut is right, because it's not guessing. It's reading patterns your conscious brain hasn't processed yet. Think about animals in the wild. They survive because of instinct. A deer senses danger before it hears a sound. A bird takes flight before the predator shows itself. That same wiring is in us, but modern life teaches us to ignore it, to explain it away, to over-rationalize. Reading people instantly means reclaiming that instinct and pairing it with awareness. Here's why this matters. Trusting your gut not only helps you protect yourself, it helps you connect. When your gut tells you someone is genuine, you can open up faster. When it tells you someone isn't safe, you can hold back before you get hurt. This isn't just about defense. It's about wisdom in how you build relationships. The most confident people you'll ever meet aren't the ones who know everything about body language and psychology. They're the ones who trust themselves. They walk into a room, feel the energy, listen to their gut, and act accordingly. They don't second, guess every signal. They respect it. So here's the challenge. Stop dismissing your intuition. When something feels off, don't ignore it. When something feels real, don't downplay it. Pay attention, pause, and let your instincts guide you. Because your gut isn't some mystical force. It's your body, your brain, and your history working together to protect you. And once you learn to trust it, you'll never walk blind into conversations again. You'll see people for who they are, not just by their words, their eyes, or their posture, but by the quiet wisdom that rises in you when something just feels true. Trust your gut. It's the most powerful instant treating tool you'll ever own. Reading people instantly, we've walked through 6 powerful keys: eyes, voice, hands, posture, pauses, and gut. Each one tells a story. Each one gives you insight that words alone will never give you, and together they form a complete language, a way of seeing people not just at face value, but at truth value, because here's the reality, people rarely say exactly what they mean. Not because they're always lying, but because words are clumsy, emotions are complicated, and sometimes we're all just trying to protect ourselves. But if you know how to read the signals, those subtle cues the body and heart can't hide, you'll step into every conversation with a clearer perspective. Think about it. When you watch the eyes, you see where attention and honesty live. When you listen to the voice, you hear the emotions behind the words. When you notice the hands, you catch the nerves and the tension that slip through. When you study posture, you see confidence, insecurity, or defense on display. When you pay attention to pauses, you hear the truths hidden in silence. And when you trust your gut, you tie it all together with the wisdom only experience can give you. That's not just about reading people. That's about leading your life with awareness, because when you can read people instantly, you connect better, you protect yourself more wisely, and you make decisions with confidence. You don't get blindsided as often. You don't fall for masks as easily. And you don't waste as much time on relationships, deals, or conversations that were never real to begin with. This isn't about judgment. It's about clarity. It's not about calling people out. It's about calling yourself up to a higher level of awareness. You're not learning these skills to manipulate. You're learning them to connect, to guard your peace, and to build trust where it's genuine. The truth is, life gets easier when you see people for who they really are. You stop trying to force connections that aren't there. You stop ignoring red flags that were waving right in front of you. And you start recognizing the green lights, the people whose eyes brighten when they see you, whose tone carries sincerity, whose hands rest open, whose posture leans in, whose pauses are full of truth, and whose presence just feels right. So take these 6 keys with you, practice them, pay attention, slow down enough to notice what most people rush past, and trust yourself, because the more you do, the more natural it becomes, and one day you'll realize you're not just reading people anymore. You're understanding them, you're connecting with them, and you're living with the kind of awareness that turns confusion into clarity and surface-level relationships into something far deeper. That's the power of reading people instantly. It's not just a skill, it's a way of seeing the world more clearly and walking through it more wisely.